In the heart of the vast and timeless sands of Egypt lies one of history's most captivating mysteries, a story that has enchanted historians, archaeologists, and the general public alike for almost a century. It's the tale of a young king, one who ruled during one of the most mysterious and turbulent periods in Egyptian history, only to fade from historical records soon after his untimely death. His tomb, hidden deep beneath the earth for thousands of years, would later reveal more than just treasures. It would uncover an enigma that would captivate the world's imagination. King Tutankhamun, often simply referred to as King Tut, is a name known worldwide, but what truly lies behind this enigmatic figure? Why, after centuries of silence, did his tomb become one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century? The answer lies not only in the riches and artifacts that lay hidden within his tomb, but in the story of a boy king whose legacy was resurrected from the shadows of history by the hands of modern explorers. Born into a period of great change and religious upheaval, Tutankhamun's reign lasted just a short decade, from around 1332 to 1323 BCE, but his name would live on forever due to the unprecedented discovery of his nearly intact tomb. What little is known about his reign, and even less about his life, has intrigued scholars for decades. Yet, it is not just the boy king's rule that draws our attention. It's a mystery surrounding his death, his burial, and the remarkable treasures that accompanied him into the afterlife. These treasures, including his iconic golden mask, are more than just opulent relics. They're symbols of Egypt's grandeur, steeped in meaning, artistry, and mystery. At the time of his death, Tutankhamun was only 18 or 19 years old. Theories about his cause of death have ranged from illness to a tragic accident, perhaps even assassination. Yet, no definitive answers have been found, and this uncertainty has fueled an endless wave of speculation and fascination. What was it about this young king's life that left so few traces in the historical record? Why was his tomb hidden away, and what secrets did it protect for thousands of years? The answers are hidden deep within the tomb's treasures, which tell the story of a royal family in turmoil, a young pharaoh who inherited a broken kingdom, and an Egypt on the brink of monumental change. The world would remain unaware of King Tut's existence until 1922, when British archaeologist Howard Carter, after years of diligent searching, unearthed the tomb in the Valley of the Kings. For Carter, it was a moment of triumph, a discovery that would be etched in the annals of archaeology. Yet, it was not only the tomb's treasures that made it so important. The tomb's preservation, nearly untouched by tomb robbers, offered an unparalleled glimpse into the ancient world. The objects found inside, many of which had never been seen before, painted a vivid picture of Egyptian burial practices, religious beliefs, and the craftsmanship of a civilization that was thousands of years old. But perhaps the most enduring image from the discovery of King Tut's tomb is the golden mask that covered his face in death. Crafted from a combination of gold and semi-precious stones, the mask has become a symbol of ancient Egypt's wealth, artistry, and reverence for the afterlife. It is perhaps the most famous artifact ever discovered, often regarded as a symbol of Egypt's rich history. The mask, with its serene, youthful face and intricate detailing, invites us to reflect on the legacy of a boy who ruled a mighty empire, yet whose life remains cloaked in mystery. Tutankhamun's reign may have been brief, but his tomb offers us a window into a lost world, an intimate, almost otherworldly connection to a civilization that has long since passed. It is a story that continues to captivate and inspire, even as we discover more about the people, the artifacts, and the rituals that define the reign of this ancient king. And as we delve deeper into the history of King Tut, we are reminded of the timeless allure of Egypt's golden age and the fascination that continues to surround the mysteries of the past. In this video, we will uncover the real story behind King Tut's golden mask and the treasures of his tomb. We will explore not only the historical context in which Tut ruled, but also the remarkable journey of how his tomb was found and the world-changing impact it had on archaeology. Along the way, we will uncover the meaning behind the mask, explore the symbolism of the treasures found with him, and try to understand the legacy of a king who was not destined for greatness, but who, through the preservation of his tomb and the richness of his burial, has become a symbol of ancient Egypt for the modern world. As we begin this exploration, we will take a journey back in time to the land of the pharaohs, where the desert sands hold the stories of civilization that flourished for thousands of years. In the soft glow of our story, we will explore a king who, despite his early death, achieved immortality through the preservation of his tomb and the artifacts that accompany him. This is the story of King Tutankhamun, the boy king whose treasures still captivate the world today. In the heart of the Valley of the Kings, amid the sun-baked hills and dusty tombs of ancient Egypt, there lies a discovery that would change the course of history. It was here in the year 1922 that archaeologist Howard Carter stumbled upon the tomb of one of the most famous pharaohs in history, King Tutankhamun. His discovery was not just another archaeological find. It was a moment of triumph, a door into a world long lost, and a narrative that had been hidden beneath the sands for over 3,000 years. The Valley of the Kings, a burial site for Egyptian royalty, had long been the subject of excavation. Numerous tombs had already been discovered, many of them looted by thieves in antiquity. Yet, as scholars, archaeologists, and treasure hunters scoured the land, King Tut's tomb remained elusive. For many years, Howard Carter had been obsessed with finding it. Carter, a British archaeologist who had worked in Egypt for years, had spent much of his career searching the Valley of the Kings for a tomb that, by all appearances, didn't exist. But his perseverance was unmatched, and in 1922, his tireless quest would pay off. It was the 4th of November when Carter made his breakthrough. His team, working on the tomb of an earlier pharaoh, discovered a set of steps that led to what seemed like an unremarkable patch of ground. But as Carter and his team began to clear the debris, they uncovered a sealed doorway, an entrance that had remained untouched for millennia. At first, they couldn't be sure what lay behind the door. But Carter, whose dedication to his work had been unwavering, was determined to press on. He sought permission to open the door, and once given, the moment arrived. Carter peered inside. What he saw was a scene that would astound the world. The doorway opened into a hallway, and beyond that was an antechamber filled with treasures, a room untouched by tomb robbers for centuries. A burial chamber sat deep within, and it was filled with gold, jewels, and items of exquisite craftsmanship, priceless artifacts that had once belonged to the boy king. It was a discovery like no other, a moment that would bring the world's attention to the hidden wonders of ancient Egypt. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this discovery was the preservation of the tomb itself. While many other pharaohs have been buried with their treasures, their tombs have been looted in antiquity, leaving little to be seen but shattered relics. King Tut's tomb, however, had remained largely intact. The tomb's relative isolation, as well as the fact that it had been sealed quickly after Tut's death, ensured that it had escaped the attention of thieves. As a result, the treasures inside were remarkably well preserved, offering scholars and historians an unparalleled glimpse into the burial customs, artistry, and beliefs of ancient Egypt. Among the treasures were chests filled with gold and silver, intricately designed statues of gods and animals, chariots, furniture, and countless other items that were carefully chosen to accompany the young king on his journey into the afterlife. The tomb contained a variety of objects, all meticulously crafted and imbued with spiritual significance. Each item was not just a luxury, but a symbol, intended to ensure that Tutankhamun would be protected in the afterlife, a belief central to ancient Egyptian culture. One of the most famous of these treasures was the golden death mask that had been placed over the king's face. The mask, made of solid gold, was a masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship. It depicted Tutankhamun with serene features, his face resting in eternal calm. The mask's intricate detailing, including semi-precious stones that formed the eyes and the delicate hieroglyphics etched into the face, made it one of the most recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt. It was an artifact that captured the world's attention when it was first revealed, and it continues to symbolize the grandeur and mystery of the ancient civilization to this day. But the golden mask was just one of the many treasures found within the tomb. As Carter's team continued to explore the burial chamber, they uncovered an array of objects that reflected Tut's status as both a king and a god. There were exquisite golden and silver objects, including jewelry, weapons, and ritual items, all designed to ensure that Tut would be well equipped for his journey into the afterlife. Some of the objects, such as the chariots and weapons, were not only ceremonial, but also symbolic of the king's power and authority. They represented his strength and his role as a protector of his people. For Carter, the discovery was both exhilarating and overwhelming. The significance of what he had found was immediately apparent. It wasn't just a collection of treasures. It was a window into a world that had been closed off to modern humanity for thousands of years. As the world learned of the discovery, people were captivated by the idea of a young king, largely forgotten by history, who had been buried with such incredible riches. The tomb of King Tut became an archaeological sensation, sparking curiosity, wonder, and a renewed interest in ancient Egyptian culture. The discovery also had a profound impact on the field of archaeology. It marked a turning point in the way archaeologists approached excavation and preservation. Carter's meticulous work in carefully cataloging and documenting the items in the tomb set a new standard for archaeological practices. The level of detail and care with which he approached the discovery ensured that the tomb's treasures would be preserved for future generations. His work also helped to cement his legacy as one of the most important archaeologists in history. However, as with all great discoveries, there were challenges that came with the fame and attention surrounding Tut's tomb. The sudden influx of interest from the press, scholars, and treasure hunters created a frenzy that would continue for years. And, of course, the discovery of the tomb was not without controversy. Some questioned whether the artifacts should be removed from Egypt and displayed in foreign museums, while others worried about the potential damage to the site caused by tourism and excavation. Despite these concerns, the tomb and its treasures were carefully preserved and studied, helping to unlock the secrets of an ancient civilization that had long since vanished. The discovery of King Tut's tomb did more than just reveal a treasure trove of artifacts. It ignited a fascination with ancient Egypt that continues to this day. The tomb offered a glimpse into the life of a king whose reign was short and whose name was once forgotten. It revealed the intricacies of Egyptian burial practices, the importance of the afterlife, and the stunning artistry of the ancient Egyptians. And, perhaps most importantly, it reminded the world that even in death, the kings of Egypt sought to leave behind a legacy that would transcend time. In the years since Carter's discovery, the tomb of King Tut has continued to capture the imagination of millions around the world. It has become a symbol not just of Egypt's ancient past, but of the enduring mystery and wonder that continues to surround the civilization. The treasures found within the tomb, especially the golden mask, have become iconic representations of ancient Egypt, and they continue to inspire awe and fascination wherever they are displayed. As we reflect on the discovery of King Tut's tomb, we are reminded of the deep connection between the past and the present. The treasures unearthed in the Valley of the Kings offer us a chance to peer into a world that existed thousands of years ago, and yet their beauty, their symbolism, and their significance remain as powerful today as they were when they were first created. King Tut's tomb is not just a place of historical importance. It is a reminder of the eternal fascination that ancient Egypt continues to hold for us all. King Tutankhamun's life, though short and largely undocumented, remains one of the most intriguing mysteries of ancient Egypt. Born into a period of dramatic political upheaval, his story is one of both fortune and misfortune, a narrative shaped by circumstances beyond his control. His reign, which lasted a mere 10 years, was marked by the weight of inherited problems and the challenging task of restoring Egypt to its former glory after the radical changes brought on by his father. But despite his youth, His reign would be crucial in the restoration of a kingdom that had been torn apart by ideological and religious discord. King Tut may not have been destined for greatness, but the world would come to know him as one of the most famous pharaohs in history. Tutankhamun was born around 1341 BCE during the 18th dynasty, a period considered to be the height of ancient Egyptian civilization. His father, Akhenaten, was a pharaoh who had sought to radically alter the religious landscape of Egypt. Akhenaten's reign is often remembered for his shift away from Egypt's traditional polytheism to the worship of a single deity, Aten, the sun disk. This dramatic religious transformation, which also included moving the capital from Thebes to a newly constructed city called Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna, left the country divided and in turmoil. Akhenaten's changes were not universally accepted, and his reign was marked by both social unrest and a weakening of Egypt's influence in the wider world. Tutankhamun's mother, likely a lesser wife of Akhenaten, died when he was still a young child. Following her death, Tut's fate was sealed by his father's controversial religious reforms. When Akhenaten died, Tut was thrust into a position of power at the tender age of 8 or 9, an age far too young to rule a kingdom. His ascension to the throne was likely orchestrated by a group of advisors, most notably a powerful court official who would later become Pharaoh himself, and Horemheb, a military leader who would eventually succeed Tut. As a young king, Tut's power was more symbolic than practical. His reign was controlled by his advisors, and it is widely believed that they were the ones who actually governed Egypt during this period. King Tut's early reign was marked by the need to undo the religious changes instituted by his father. Akhenaten's reign had left Egypt's traditional temples in disrepair, and the priesthood of Ammonius, who had been marginalized during Akhenaten's rule, had lost much of their power and influence. Upon taking the throne, Tutankhamun made the decision to return Egypt to its traditional polytheistic worship. The name Tutankhamun itself means living image of Ammonius, symbolizing his restoration of the old religious order. He moved the capital back to Thebes, the traditional heart of Egyptian civilization, and re-established the power of the priesthood of Ammonius, signaling a return to the stability that had been disrupted during his father's reign. Despite the restoration of the old religious order, Tutankhamun's reign was not without its challenges. Egypt was still recovering from the effects of Akhenaten's religious reforms. The country had also experienced significant political instability, both internally and externally. During Akhenaten's reign, Egypt's imperial power had diminished, and foreign powers such as the Hittites and the Mitanni were becoming increasingly influential in the region. Tut's advisors, particularly worked to stabilize Egypt's political position through diplomacy and alliances. One of the most famous diplomatic exchanges during this time was the marriage of Tutankhamun to Enkhesinemen, the daughter of Akhenaten and his queen Nefertiti. This marriage, which served to solidify Tut's legitimacy as the heir to Akhenaten's throne, would also have profound implications for the young king's life. The role of Enkhesinemen, however, is a subject of much debate. It is believed that she may have been Tut's half-sister, as she was the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and that her marriage to Tut was likely a political alliance designed to solidify his rule. Enkhesinemen's role in history is shrouded in mystery. It is unclear whether she played a significant part in the governance of Egypt during her husband's reign or whether she was merely a figurehead in the court. Some scholars speculate that she may have been deeply involved in the decision-making process, especially after Tut's early death. While Tut's reign was undoubtedly shaped by the influence of his advisors, there are indications that the young king took a more active role in some aspects of governance as he grew older. Archaeological evidence suggests that Tut may have been a capable leader, particularly in terms of military and diplomatic affairs. Some inscriptions indicate that he led military campaigns in the Levant, although these campaigns were likely not as grand or significant as those of earlier pharaohs. The fact that his tomb contains numerous weapons, chariots, and military gear suggests that Tut may have had some role in defending Egypt's borders, or at least in maintaining the appearance of military strength. In addition to his diplomatic and military endeavors, King Tut's reign also saw the continuation of many of the cultural traditions that had defined Egypt for centuries. During his time on the throne, art and architecture flourished, with many works produced for the tombs of nobility and high-ranking officials. Tut's tomb itself, though relatively small compared to those of other pharaohs, was richly decorated and filled with valuable objects, reflecting the wealth and skill of Egypt's artisans. This focus on the afterlife and the importance of securing a safe passage to the next world was a central theme of Tut's reign. Tutankhamun's legacy is often overshadowed by the brevity of his reign and the fact that his tomb and its treasures, rather than his accomplishments as a ruler, became the central focus of modern interest. His death, occurring at the age of 18 or 19, was sudden and remains the subject of much speculation. Various theories have been proposed to explain his untimely demise, ranging from a sudden illness to an accident, or even foul play. There is evidence to suggest that Tut may have suffered from a number of health issues during his lifetime, including a clubfoot and possible genetic disorders, which could have contributed to his early death. Despite the mysteries surrounding his death, Tut's legacy as a ruler is significant. Though his reign may have been marked more by the actions of his advisors than his own decisions, his restoration of traditional religious practices and his efforts to stabilize Egypt after the tumultuous reign of his father laid the groundwork for a period of peace and prosperity in the years that followed. His tomb, filled with treasures of unparalleled beauty and craftsmanship, remains one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries in history. King Tut may have been a boy king, but his impact on the world is far from small. He is a symbol of the eternal mystery of Egypt and a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected figures can leave the most lasting legacies. As we reflect on the life of King Tut, we realize that while he may not have been destined for greatness in the traditional sense, his story has endured through the ages. His tomb, his treasures, and the story of his life continue to captivate the world, reminding us that the smallest figures in history can sometimes leave the biggest footprints. King Tutankhamun's death remains one of the most perplexing and debated mysteries in the history of ancient Egypt. The young king passed away at an age when many expected him to have many years left to rule, making his untimely demise even more puzzling. Though he was only around 18 or 19 years old when he died, the precise cause of his death has never been definitively determined. This uncertainty has fueled decades of speculation and debate among historians, archaeologists, and scientists, with numerous theories emerging over the years. Was it a natural illness, a violent accident, or perhaps even something more sinister, an assassination orchestrated by those seeking to control Egypt's throne? While we may never know for certain what truly happened to King Tut, the investigation into his death continues to captivate the imagination and spark curiosity about the life of the boy king. When Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, the world was thrilled not only by the treasures it contained, but also by the remarkable preservation of the king's mummified body. The tomb provided an unparalleled opportunity for researchers to examine the young pharaoh's remains, which would offer potential clues about the cause of his death. However, despite extensive analysis, no single, conclusive explanation has emerged. Theories abound, but none have fully resolved the mystery. The most widely discussed theory is that King Tut's death was caused by a sudden illness, possibly an infection. Some researchers believe that Tut may have succumbed to an acute infection resulting from a leg injury he sustained shortly before his death. X-ray scans of his mummy revealed evidence of broken bones, including a fracture in his left leg. This injury, according to some experts, may have become infected, leading to a fatal case of sepsis, a life-threatening condition that occurs when an infection spreads throughout the body. This theory gained further credence when it was discovered that the king's body showed signs of infection in the leg tissue, which could have been the source of a fatal complication. However, other experts argue that this theory is not entirely convincing. While the infection theory certainly holds some merit, it doesn't fully explain some of the other peculiarities surrounding Tut's death. For example, It is curious that no mention of this leg injury or infection appears in any historical records from the time. The absence of any accounts of Tut's illness or death in contemporary sources raises questions about the true nature of his condition. Some researchers suggest that it is unlikely that such a significant injury would have gone unnoticed by the court, particularly given the young king's elevated status and the importance of ensuring his health. Another theory that has garnered attention is that King Tut was the victim of an accident. The theory of an accidental death is based on the belief that Tut may have been involved in some kind of physical trauma, possibly a chariot accident or a fall from a great height. The presence of chariots and other riding equipment in his tomb suggests that Tut was not only a king, but also an active participant in royal pursuits, including hunting and warfare. He may have been injured while riding a chariot, or perhaps he suffered a fatal fall while engaging in some other physical activity. However, while this theory is plausible, it is difficult to reconcile with the absence of any clear signs of trauma on his body that would point definitively to an accident. The idea of foul play, assassination, also features prominently in discussions surrounding King Tut's death. Given the political intrigue that surrounded the royal court during Tut's reign, some scholars have speculated that the young king may have been murdered by those who stood to benefit from his death. The most likely suspects in such a scenario would be the powerful figures in the court, such as the Vizier I, who would eventually become pharaoh, or even Horemheb, the general who succeeded Tut as the ruler of Egypt. Both I and Horemheb were influential figures in the administration and military, and their ambitions to claim the throne could have driven them to eliminate Tut in order to seize power. This theory is supported by the fact that Tut's death came at a time when there was considerable political instability in Egypt. The country had been reeling from the radical religious reforms of Tut's father, Akhenaten, and the boy king's efforts to restore the traditional religious order may have made him unpopular with certain factions of the court. Additionally, some historians have pointed to Tut's young age as a potential weakness. As a ruler still in the process of maturing and asserting his authority, he may have been seen as a pawn in the hands of those who sought to use him to further their own political agendas. It is possible, then, that Tut's death was orchestrated as part of a larger political struggle for control of the throne. Despite these theories, there is no conclusive evidence to support the idea of assassination. No signs of violence or trauma were discovered on Tut's mummified body that would indicate a violent death at the hands of an assassin. Furthermore, there are no written record from the time that describe any political unrest or conspiracies surrounding the king's death. This lack of evidence makes the theory of assassination difficult to prove, though it remains an intriguing possibility. A less commonly discussed, but still plausible theory is that King Tut's death could have been the result of genetic disorders. Some modern researchers have pointed out that Tutankhamun may have inherited genetic conditions that made him more vulnerable to disease or injury. Tut was the product of incestuous unions between close family members. His father, Akhenaten, married his sister Nefertiti, and it is likely that Tut's parents were also siblings. Inbreeding can increase the likelihood of genetic defects, and this could explain some of the health issues that have been observed in Tut's remains. For example, DNA analysis of Tut's mummy revealed that he had several health problems, including a clubfoot, a condition that would have made him physically vulnerable. Additionally, Tut is believed to have suffered from malaria, as traces of the disease were found in his mummified remains. These genetic disorders, combined with the physical stress of ruling and the potentially debilitating effects of his health issues, may have contributed to his early death. Some scientists believe that the combination of malaria and genetic defects weakened Tut's immune system, making him more susceptible to infections or illnesses. This, in turn, could have led to his premature demise, either through direct illness or as a result of a weakened state following an injury or infection. While none of these theories can be definitively proven, they all offer plausible explanations for the untimely death of the young pharaoh. The reality is that we may never know the true cause of King Tut's death. The evidence is simply too fragmented and inconclusive to arrive at a single, clear answer. However, what is certain is that Tut's death, coming at such a young age and under such mysterious circumstances, only deepened the intrigue surrounding his life and legacy. In the years since his death, King Tut's story has captured the imagination of millions. His brief reign, his sudden death, and the discovery of his tomb have cemented his place in the annals of history. The mystery of his death only adds to the allure of the boy king, making him one of the most enigmatic figures in Egyptian history. Though we may never know exactly what happened to King Tut, the search for answers continues, and his story remains a testament to the enduring fascination with ancient Egypt. The golden mask of King Tutankhamun is perhaps the most iconic symbol of ancient Egypt, embodying the opulence, artistry, and spiritual beliefs of a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago. When Howard Carter first uncovered the tomb of King Tut in 1922, it was this exquisite, lifelike mask that captured the world's attention. Crafted from solid gold, adorned with intricate semi-precious stones, and designed with an air of serene majesty, the mask quickly became synonymous with the boy king and the grandeur of ancient Egypt. But beyond its beauty and fame, the golden mask holds profound significance in the ancient Egyptian understanding of death, the afterlife, and the divine nature of kingship. It is not just a piece of art. It is a symbol of immortality, a tool for spiritual protection, and a reflection of the profound beliefs that guided the lives of the ancient Egyptians. The mask was found on the mummified body of Tutankhamun, placed over his head and shoulders as a part of his elaborate burial. It was designed to be an eternal likeness of the young pharaoh, ensuring that his spirit would be able to recognize his physical form in the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, it was believed that the soul of the deceased would continue to live on after death, but it required guidance and protection to make the journey through the underworld to the afterlife. The mask served as both a likeness of the king and a magical representation of his divine nature. By wearing it in death, Tutankhamun was afforded the protection and power necessary to pass through the trials of the afterlife and reach a place of eternal peace. The craftsmanship of the mask is breathtaking, a testament to the skill of ancient Egyptian artisans. It is made of solid gold, with a face that is both youthful and serene. The king's features are carefully rendered, with almond-shaped eyes, a straight nose, and full lips, all captured with a remarkable level of detail. The eyes themselves are made from a combination of crystal and obsidian, giving them an almost lifelike appearance. The mask's headdress, which is adorned with intricate designs and a cobra and vulture, symbolizing Upper and Lower Egypt, reinforces Tut's role as a ruler of the entire kingdom. The headdress and the face are surrounded by a striped collar made of colored glass and semi-precious stones, adding to the mask's richness and vibrancy. One of the most striking aspects of the mask is its symbolism. The cobra and vulture that sit atop the headdress are powerful symbols in Egyptian mythology, representing the divine authority of the pharaoh. The cobra, or uraeus, was a symbol of protection and power, often associated with the goddess Wadjet, the patron deity of Lower Egypt. The vulture, representing the goddess Nekhbet, was a symbol of protection for Upper Egypt. Together, these symbols reinforce the idea that the pharaoh is not just a mortal ruler, but a divine being who has been chosen to govern both parts of Egypt. The mask's design, therefore, emphasizes Tutankhamun's godlike status and his role as the intermediary between the gods and the people. The mask also reflects the ancient Egyptians' belief in the importance of preserving the king's identity after death. In ancient Egyptian culture, the preservation of the body through mummification was crucial for the soul's survival. The physical body was seen as the home of the soul, and it needed to be preserved to ensure that the soul could recognize it in the afterlife. The golden mask, placed over Tut's mummified face, was not just a representation of the king's earthly form. It was also a way of ensuring that his soul would continue to recognize and inhabit the body. This belief in the continuity of the soul was central to the Egyptian understanding of the afterlife, where the pharaohs, as divine beings, were thought to ascend to the heavens after death and join the gods in eternity. In addition to its symbolic meaning, the golden mask was a work of extraordinary artistry. It is a masterpiece of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship, reflecting the high level of skill that artisans had achieved by the time of Tutankhamun's reign. The mask is made of over 11 kilograms, around 24 pounds, of gold, and its face is delicately inlaid with colored stones, including lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian. These semi-precious stones, which were highly valued in ancient Egypt, were carefully chosen for their symbolic associations with the gods and the afterlife. Lapis lazuli, for example, was associated with the heavens and the gods, while turquoise symbolized life and fertility. The careful arrangement of these stones on the mask was not only an aesthetic choice, but also a way of imbuing the mask with magical properties that would help protect the king's soul. The mask's significance also extends to its role in the burial rituals of ancient Egypt. The process of preparing a pharaoh for burial was a highly ritualistic one, and the mask was an essential part of this process. The ancient Egyptians believed that the soul of the deceased would face many challenges in the afterlife, including judgment by the gods, battles with demons, and the journey through the underworld. The mask, along with the other items found in Tut's tomb, was intended to provide the king with the protection he would need to navigate these trials and reach the afterlife successfully. The mask was a magical object, imbued with the power to shield the pharaoh from harm and ensure his immortality. In the context of Tutankhamun's burial, the golden mask was part of a much larger and more elaborate funerary arrangement. The tomb, filled with treasures, jewelry, weapons, and ceremonial objects, was designed to provide the king with everything he would need in the afterlife. The mask, however, stands out as the most famous and significant object found in the tomb, both for its artistic merit and its symbolic importance. It is a powerful reminder of the ancient Egyptians' deep belief in the divine nature of kingship and their commitment to ensuring that their rulers would enjoy eternal life after death. The discovery of the mask, along with the other treasures found in Tut's tomb, had a profound impact on the world. For centuries, the ancient Egyptians had been a source of fascination, but it was only with the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb that the world was able to gain a true understanding of the wealth, artistry, and sophistication of the civilization. The golden mask became a symbol not only of King Tut himself, but also of the splendor and mystery of ancient Egypt. It captivated the imaginations of people around the world, drawing attention to Egypt's remarkable achievements in art, architecture, and religious thought. Today, the golden mask is one of the most recognizable artifacts in the world, housed in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It continues to inspire awe and wonder, drawing millions of visitors who come to see the object that has come to represent the eternal power and mystery of the pharaohs. Despite the many centuries that have passed since it was created, the mask remains as powerful and evocative as it was when it was first made. It is a testament to the enduring legacy of ancient Egypt and a reminder of the incredible artistry and spiritual beliefs that shaped the civilization. In the end, the golden mask is more than just a beautiful object. It is a symbol of immortality. It was created not only to preserve the likeness of a king, but to ensure his eternal protection and safe passage to the afterlife. It speaks to the ancient Egyptians' belief in the continuity of the soul and the divine nature of kingship, and it stands as a reminder of the remarkable achievements of a civilization that continues to fascinate and inspire us to this day. When Howard Carter first peered into the tomb of King Tutankhamun in 1922, the world was not only presented with the figure of the young king, but also with a treasure trove of unimaginable wealth and significance. What lay within that darkened chamber was a magnificent array of artifacts, a snapshot of life and death in ancient Egypt, meticulously placed and preserved for over 3,000 years. King Tut's tomb was unlike any other royal burial discovered before. While many tombs had been looted over the centuries, Tutankhamun's tomb had remained virtually untouched by thieves, allowing the treasures it contained to survive in extraordinary condition. These treasures, from chariots to jewelry, weapons to furniture, have captivated historians, archaeologists, and the general public alike, offering an unparalleled glimpse into the opulence and grandeur of ancient Egyptian royalty. Among the most remarkable aspects of the discovery was the sheer quantity of objects found in the tomb. more than 5,000 items, all of which had been carefully selected and placed to accompany the young pharaoh in the afterlife. Each object had a specific purpose, representing not only the king's wealth, but also his status, his journey into the afterlife, and his connection to the divine. The treasures were not just material wealth, but also rich in symbolic meaning, designed to ensure Tutankhamun's protection and comfort in the world beyond death. One of the most iconic of these treasures is the golden mask itself, which we explored in the previous section. But beyond this single piece of art, the tomb contained countless other treasures, all designed to aid Tut in his journey to the afterlife. Among these were stunning pieces of jewelry, crafted with unparalleled skill and artistry. Gold, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian were woven together into intricate necklaces, bracelets, and rings that not only highlighted the king's wealth, but also his connection to the gods. Many of these pieces were thought to offer divine protection, while others were designed to signify the king's royal status and ensure his immortality. In addition to the jewelry, the tomb contained a vast array of ceremonial objects that were meant to accompany Tutankhamun in the afterlife. Among these were statues of deities, including Anubis, the god of the afterlife, and Horus, the falcon-headed god associated with kingship. These statues, many made of gold or wood, were placed strategically throughout the tomb, providing spiritual protection to the king's mummified body. Their presence was meant to ensure that Tutankhamun would be guided safely through the trials of the underworld, where he would face judgment by the gods and undergo transformation into an eternal being. The tomb also contained a variety of tools and weapons, including chariots, bows, arrows, and even a complete set of armor. These items, while seeming somewhat out of place in a tomb, were not intended for use in the afterlife, but were symbolic of Tut's power and might during his earthly reign. The presence of chariots and weapons in the tomb is a reminder of the king's role as both a spiritual and temporal leader. In the afterlife, the king was believed to need these items to defend himself from the dangers that awaited him, and they were placed in the tomb as a means of ensuring that he would remain strong and capable, even in death. Among the other objects found in the tomb were intricately designed thrones, chairs, and furniture, all crafted from precious materials like wood, ivory, and gold. These items, much like the jewelry, were not merely ornamental but served a symbolic purpose, reflecting the king's royal status and his divine right to rule. Some of these objects were designed to be used in the afterlife, while others were meant to symbolize the comfort and luxury that the king would enjoy in his eternal resting place. The attention to detail in these items, often adorned with carvings, gold leaf, and inlaid stones, reveals the incredible craftsmanship of ancient Egyptian artisans. In addition to these lavish objects, the tomb contained a number of more practical items, such as clothing and personal items, which would help Tutankhamun in the afterlife. These included sandals, linen garments, and even perfumes, which were intended to maintain the king's comfort and dignity in death. The presence of these items underscores the ancient Egyptian belief that the afterlife was not merely a spiritual journey, but one that required physical sustenance and care. The Egyptians believed that the deceased would require clothing, food, and other comforts as they journeyed through the underworld and into the realm of the gods. One of the most fascinating aspects of the treasures in Tut's tomb was their range and variety. The tomb contained not only the material wealth of the pharaoh, but also an assortment of symbolic objects that reflected the king's role as a divine ruler and his connection to the gods. These treasures were more than just symbols of wealth. They were instruments of divine protection, ensuring that Tutankhamun will be able to navigate the perilous journey through the afterlife and achieve eternal life. The discovery of Tutankhamun's treasures also shed light on the artistic and cultural practices of ancient Egypt. The quality of the craftsmanship found in the tomb was remarkable, showcasing the expertise of Egyptian artisans. Whether it was the detailed gold work of the jewelry or the intricate carvings on the furniture, each object was a testament to the advanced techniques and artistry that had developed in Egypt over the centuries. The tomb of Tutankhamun is one of the most significant archaeological finds of all time, not just because of the wealth it revealed, but because of the insight it provided into the artistry and craftsmanship that defined the ancient Egyptian civilization. One particularly striking feature of the treasures found in Tut's tomb was the use of materials that were highly valued in ancient Egypt, such as lapis lazuli and turquoise. These semi-precious stones were often used to symbolize the heavens and the divine. Lapis lazuli, in particular, was believed to be a stone of great power, associated with the gods and the afterlife. The frequent use of these materials in the tomb's treasures reinforced the idea that Tutankhamun, like all pharaohs, was a divine ruler with a direct connection to the gods. The intricate carvings and the use of inlaid stones not only served to enhance the visual beauty of the items, but also imbued them with a spiritual significance that ensured the king's protection in the afterlife. The discovery of these treasures sparked a global fascination with ancient Egypt, as they provided tangible proof of the civilization's grandeur and sophistication. For the first time, the world could see the wealth and splendor that had once been associated with Egypt's pharaohs. The treasures of Tutankhamun's tomb, which included everything from the most elaborate jewelry to simple everyday items, provided a snapshot of ancient Egyptian life and death that was unparalleled in its richness and detail. What makes these treasures so fascinating is not just their material value, but their deep connection to the beliefs and spiritual practices of ancient Egypt. Each object was carefully chosen to ensure that the king would be protected, nourished, and comfortable in the afterlife. The tomb was a reflection of Tut's power and status, but it was also a reflection of the enduring religious beliefs that permeated every aspect of Egyptian society. For the ancient Egyptians, the afterlife was not a place of emptiness, but a continuation of life, albeit in a different form. The treasures found in Tutankhamun's tomb were meant to ensure that the king's life, both in this world and the next, would be one of comfort, protection, and divine favor. The treasures of Tutankhamun, then, serve as both a testament to the artistic brilliance of ancient Egypt and a reminder of the profound religious and cultural beliefs that define the civilization. They are not just relics of a long-lost world, but symbols of the eternal quest for immortality, a quest that transcended time and place. Today, as we continue to study and admire the treasures of Tutankhamun, we are reminded of the rich legacy of ancient Egypt and the timeless allure of its mysteries. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb did not just captivate the world with its treasures and historical significance. It also gave rise to one of the most enduring and fascinating legends in archaeological history, the Curse of the Pharaohs. Shortly after the tomb's unearthing in 1922, a series of mysterious deaths and misfortunes struck those involved in the excavation, leading many to believe that Tutankhamun's tomb was cursed by ancient forces. The idea of a vengeful curse, which would exact revenge on anyone who dared disturb the resting place of Egypt's royal dead, quickly became part of the lore surrounding the tomb. But is the curse a true part of Tutankhamun's legacy, or merely a myth fueled by coincidence, sensationalism, and superstition? While there are many who dismiss the curse as an exaggerated tale, its story has been passed down through generations, making it one of the most intriguing aspects of King Tut's discovery. The origins of the Curse of the Pharaohs can be traced back to the early days of the excavation itself. In fact, the first hints of a curse began circulating even before the tomb was officially opened. Lord Carnarvon, the British aristocrat who financed Howard Carter's expedition, had been warned by a local antiquities dealer about a curse that would befall anyone who disturbed the tomb of Tutankhamun. It was said that the ancient Egyptians, in their belief in the sanctity of the tombs, would place a magical curse on anyone who defiled the resting place of a pharaoh. Though Carnarvon dismissed such warnings as superstitions, the idea of a curse began to take hold, particularly after his sudden death. On April 5, 1923, just months after the tomb's discovery, Lord Carnarvon died unexpectedly from an infection. He had been bitten by a mosquito, and the wound became infected, leading to a fatal illness. The circumstances of his death, so sudden and dramatic, were enough to fuel the growing myth of the curse. But what truly amplified the legend was the fact that Carnarvon's death occurred shortly after the tomb was opened. For many, it seemed as though the curse had struck swiftly and decisively. To make matters even more mysterious, it was reported that Carnarvon's dog, a terrier named Jack, died on the same night, further deepening the sense of eerie coincidence. As the months passed, the deaths continued to mount. Several other members of the expedition, as well as those with connections to the tomb's discovery, began to die under mysterious or unusual circumstances. Among them was George Gould, a wealthy American who had visited the tomb shortly after its discovery and who died of an infection not long afterward. Another figure, Sir Bruce Ingram, a journalist who had also been involved in the excavation, lost his wife under strange circumstances. These deaths were often reported in the press as being linked to the curse, especially as more people with ties to the tomb began to experience untimely deaths. As the fatalities mounted, the legend of the curse of the pharaohs took on a life of its own. In 1923, the popular press began to sensationalize the story, creating headlines that linked every death to the wrath of the ancient Egyptians. The media played a significant role in perpetuating the idea of a curse, weaving together the strange series of events into a narrative that was both thrilling and ominous. The curse was said to be an ancient magic placed on the tomb by the priests of Egypt to protect the pharaoh from those who would violate his resting place. According to the legend, anyone who disturbed Tutankhamun's tomb would suffer the consequences of divine retribution, their lives forever marked by misfortune or death. The more mysterious the deaths seemed, the more the legend of the curse grew. And yet, despite the widespread belief in the curse, not everyone associated with the tomb's discovery suffered. Howard Carter himself, the lead archaeologist responsible for unearthing the tomb, lived for many years after the excavation. He died in 1939 at the age of 64, having lived a full life, hardly the fate one might expect if the curse were truly real. His survival, along with the longevity of many other members of the expedition, led some to question the validity of the curse. Why had the curse appeared to affect some individuals and not others? One possible explanation is the role of coincidence. Some researchers argue that the deaths that occurred in the wake of the tomb's discovery were not as unusual or mysterious as they may have seemed. Lord Carnarvon's death from infection, for example, could be explained by the medical conditions of the time, as many people suffered from infections that were difficult to treat in the early 20th century. Similarly, other deaths could be attributed to factors such as poor health, age, or other natural causes, rather than an ancient curse. Moreover, the fact that there were several individuals who survived for many years after the discovery of the tomb suggests that the curse may have been nothing more than a product of superstition and myth. In the years following the discovery, many of those involved in the excavation lived full and relatively healthy lives. Yet, the stories of death and misfortune continued to capture the public imagination, and the idea of a curse persisted, perpetuated by the media and the public's fascination with Egyptology and the supernatural. Another theory is that the legend of the curse was a way to explain away the tragedy and misfortune that often surrounds archaeological expeditions. The discovery of King Tut's tomb was, without a doubt, a groundbreaking event that captured the attention of the world. But with such an extraordinary discovery came a great deal of pressure, both for those directly involved in the excavation and for those who would profit from the finds. The deaths of key figures associated with the tomb may have been a way for people to explain the stresses and tragedies of life, particularly in a time when death, disease, and misfortune were often seen as mysterious or inexplicable. Despite the skepticism surrounding the curse, it continues to be a captivating element of Tutankhamun's story. The idea that ancient Egyptians would go to such lengths to protect their tombs and that they would place a supernatural curse on their resting places is an idea that continues to fascinate and intrigue. The legend of the curse taps into universal fears about the unknown, the supernatural, and the idea that the past can reach out to influence the present. Beyond its sensational aspects, The curse of the pharaohs has become an integral part of the mythology surrounding ancient Egypt. It adds an air of mystery and danger to the already captivating discovery of King Tut's tomb. Whether or not one believes in the curse itself, the story remains a part of the enduring legacy of Tutankhamun, and it continues to fuel the fascination with both the king and the civilization he represents. For many, the curse is a symbol of the power and mystery of ancient Egypt, a reminder that even in death, the pharaohs were believed to wield immense power. In the end, whether the curse of the pharaohs is real or merely a myth, it continues to be an essential part of the story of Tutankhamun's tomb. The deaths and misfortunes that followed the discovery of the tomb added a layer of intrigue and mystique to an already remarkable archaeological find. And while the curse may never be proven or disproven, its place in the legend of King Tut endures, adding an eerie, supernatural dimension to the Boy King's already fascinating story. Though his reign was short and largely uneventful from a political standpoint, King Tutankhamun's legacy is one that continues to captivate the world. His story is not just the tale of a young pharaoh who ascended to the throne at an early age and died tragically young. It is also the story of how a forgotten king, whose tomb had been sealed for millennia, became one of the most famous figures in history. The discovery of King Tut's tomb in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter transformed Tutankhamun from a relatively obscure historical figure into a global icon. His legacy is defined by the treasures found in his tomb, the mystery surrounding his life and death, and the impact his story has had on Egyptology and popular culture. Before the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, the Boy King was not considered one of Egypt's most significant rulers. His reign, which lasted only 10 years, did not mark any monumental events or achievements in Egyptian history. He is thought to have inherited a kingdom that was still recovering from the religious upheaval caused by his father, Akhenaten, who had attempted to impose monotheism on Egypt and had shifted the capital to a new city, Akhetaten. Tutankhamun's efforts to restore the traditional religious practices of Egypt were important, but they were not necessarily groundbreaking. His reign was also marked by the dominance of his advisors, and it is believed that the young pharaoh had little personal influence over state matters. For centuries, Tutankhamun was not even considered a noteworthy figure in the annals of ancient Egyptian history. His tomb had been undisturbed for over 3,000 years, and his name was largely forgotten by the time of its discovery. However, the tomb's discovery and the treasures found within it would breathe new life into the Boy King's legacy, and in doing so, changed the way the world viewed ancient Egypt. The discovery of King Tut's tomb in the Valley of the Kings is one of the most significant archaeological events of the 20th century. Howard Carter and his team, after years of searching, unearthed the tomb in 1922, revealing a wealth of treasures, including the famous golden mask, statues, jewelry, and everyday objects meant to accompany the king into the afterlife. The discovery was met with worldwide fascination, and it brought Egyptology into the global spotlight. For the first time, people could see the opulence of a pharaoh's tomb in vivid detail, and they were introduced to the material culture of ancient Egypt in a way that had never been possible before. While the treasures of Tutankhamun's tomb captivated the world, it was the mystery surrounding the Boy King's life and death that added an additional layer of intrigue. The fact that his tomb had remained intact, undisturbed by grave robbers, was unprecedented. Most tombs in the Valley of the Kings had been looted centuries earlier, and the objects found in them had either been stolen or destroyed. The relatively untouched state of Tutankhamun's tomb allowed researchers to study the burial practices of ancient Egypt in remarkable detail, shedding light on the art, religion, and daily life of the civilization. The golden mask of King Tut, in particular, became an enduring symbol of ancient Egypt. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, made of solid gold and inlaid with lapis lazuli and other precious stones, and it depicted the pharaoh's youthful face with serene expression and regal detail. The mask became synonymous with Tutankhamun and, by extension, with ancient Egyptian civilization as a whole. Its discovery along with the other treasures of the tomb, made Tut a household name, and the mask remains one of the most iconic and widely recognized artifacts from the ancient world. King Tut's story also gave rise to numerous theories, speculations, and myths, which continue to add to his legacy. The mystery of his sudden death at the young age of 18 or 19, along with the so-called curse of the pharaohs, which seemed to claim the lives of those involved in the discovery of his tomb, captured the imagination of people around the world. While the curse is largely regarded as a superstition, it nevertheless contributed to the mystique of Tutankhamun, transforming his story from one of historical interest to one of intrigue and mystery. In the realm of Egyptology, King Tutankhamun's tomb remains one of the most important discoveries ever made. The objects found within the tomb have provided invaluable insights into the religious and artistic practices of ancient Egypt, particularly during the New Kingdom period. The tomb revealed the extraordinary skill of Egyptian artisans, as well as the rich symbolic meanings behind the items buried with the pharaoh. The use of materials like gold, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian demonstrated the high level of craftsmanship achieved by Egyptian artisans, and the intricate design of the tomb's layout reflected the cultural importance placed on the afterlife. The tomb also shed light on the role of the pharaoh in ancient Egyptian society. The burial of such an extensive array of objects, ranging from ceremonial items to everyday goods, illustrated the belief that the afterlife was an extension of life on earth. The pharaoh, as a divine ruler, was thought to need these items in order to continue his reign in the afterlife and ensure his protection and comfort as he journeyed through the underworld. These burial practices, which were consistent with the Egyptian belief in immortality, were revealed to the world through the artifacts found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Beyond the academic and historical significance of Tutankhamun's tomb, the discovery had a profound cultural impact, shaping how modern society views ancient Egypt. The boy king's treasures became emblematic of the splendor and mystery of the ancient world, and Tutankhamun himself became a symbol of youthful innocence, vulnerability, and the tragic brevity of life. His story resonated with people across cultures, sparking interest in Egyptology, archaeology, and the study of ancient civilizations. The cultural legacy of King Tut can also be seen in the way he has been depicted in popular culture. Over the years, Tutankhamun has been portrayed in countless books, documentaries, films, and exhibitions. His golden mask has become a symbol not just of ancient Egypt, but of the allure and mystique of the ancient world as a whole. The discovery of his tomb inspired a fascination with all things Egyptian, from fashion to art, and contributed to the Egyptomania that swept through the Western world in the early 20th century. Tutankhamun's impact is also felt in the world of archaeology and museology. The treasures from his tomb remain some of the most prized and important artifacts in the field of Egyptology. Museums around the world, including the Egyptian Museum in Cairo and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, have displayed his treasures in exhibitions that draw millions of visitors. These exhibitions not only educate the public about the grandeur of ancient Egyptian civilization, but also foster a deeper appreciation for the art and craftsmanship of ancient artisans. Despite his death at a young age, King Tutankhamun's legacy has endured for more than 3,000 years. He may have ruled for only a brief period, but the treasures found in his tomb have ensured that his name will never be forgotten. His story, from his discovery in 1922 to his ongoing influence in modern culture, is a testament to the enduring power of the past to shape the present. The mystery of his life, his death, and his tomb continue to fascinate people around the world. And as long as people remain captivated by the wonders of ancient Egypt, King Tutankhamun's legacy will live on. The story of King Tutankhamun, while rich with discovery and intrigue, also contains an array of unsolved mysteries. Despite the remarkable achievements of archaeologists and researchers who have studied his life, reign, and burial, many aspects of King Tut's existence remain shrouded in uncertainty. His rapid rise to power, his mysterious death, and the true nature of his reign all contribute to a sense of incomplete knowledge that continues to spark curiosity and speculation. These unanswered questions, along with the many gaps in our understanding of the boy king's life, add layers of complexity to his legacy, ensuring that the fascination with King Tut will likely continue for generations to come. One of the most significant unanswered questions about King Tut is the exact nature of his lineage. While it is widely accepted that Tutankhamun was the son of the controversial pharaoh Akhenaten, who is best known for his attempts to introduce monotheism into Egypt, the identity of his mother has remained uncertain. Some scholars believe that Tut's mother was Nefertiti, Akhenaten's queen, but this theory remains unproven. Genetic testing on Tut's mummy has suggested that his mother may have been a sister or close relative, as inbreeding was common in the royal family at the time, but there is no conclusive evidence to confirm her identity. The mystery surrounding Tut's parentage only deepens when considering the possibility of Nefertiti's role in his life and his upbringing. The absence of clear records and the lack of definitive proof leave room for speculation, making it one of the most enduring mysteries of his life. Furthermore, the nature of Tutankhamun's brief reign remains elusive. While it is clear that he ascended to the throne at a very young age, historians are still uncertain about how much power he actually wielded. His reign is often characterized as one of political instability, where his advisors, such as the Vizier Ai and the General Horemheb, likely held significant control over the kingdom. Some have even suggested that Tut may have been a puppet ruler, with the true power lying in the hands of those around him. However, the lack of written record from Tut's reign makes it difficult to draw firm conclusions about the extent of his influence. The idea that he may have been a passive figure in the political landscape of ancient Egypt adds a layer of mystery to his character and reign, leaving us with only fragmented glimpses into his leadership and actions. The circumstances surrounding Tut's death remain one of the greatest enigmas in Egyptian history. Though modern technology, including X-rays and DNA analysis, has provided some insight into the young pharaoh's physical condition, the true cause of his death remains speculative. For many years, it was believed that Tut died from an infection caused by a broken leg, but more recent studies suggest a possible genetic condition, such as malaria, may have contributed to his demise. There are also theories that his death was not natural at all, but the result of foul play. Some scholars have speculated that Tut may have been assassinated, possibly due to political intrigue or a struggle for the throne. Given the circumstances of his sudden death and the lack of definitive evidence, it seems likely that we may never know for certain what caused the untimely end of such a young king. The mystery of his death, coupled with the theories of murder or foul play, continues to generate intense debate among historians and archaeologists, with no clear answers in sight. In addition to his mysterious death, the possible presence of a curse surrounding Tut's tomb has added another layer of uncertainty to the story. The so-called Curse of the Pharaohs, which was said to strike down those who disturbed the tomb of a pharaoh, gained notoriety after the deaths of several individuals connected to the tomb's discovery, most notably Lord Carnarvon, the British financier of the excavation. While many experts dismiss the curse as a superstition or coincidence, the deaths and misfortunes surrounding the tomb have continued to intrigue and mystify the public. The idea of an ancient curse casts a shadow over the entire discovery, making it one of the more sensational aspects of Tut's legacy, despite the lack of any scientific or historical evidence to support it. The curse myth, fueled by the dramatic events that followed the tomb's discovery, only deepens the mystery of King Tut's tomb and his place in Egyptian history. Another mystery is the placement of Tutankhamun's tomb itself. The tomb, located in the Valley of the Kings, was relatively small compared to those of other pharaohs, leading some scholars to question whether it was meant to be a royal burial at all. It is possible that the tomb was originally intended for a different ruler, only to be repurposed for Tut after his early death. The fact that the tomb was not looted by grave robbers, despite its location in a valley that had long been a target for thieves, has also led to speculation about the tomb's original purpose. Some believe that the tomb's modest size and relative obscurity suggest that it was not originally meant for Tut, but rather for a lesser figure or a more temporary burial. The discovery of such a rich array of treasures within a tomb that was not thought to belong to a major ruler only adds to the sense of mystery and intrigue surrounding King Tut's burial. The treasures found in Tut's tomb, while extraordinary, also raise questions about the true nature of his reign and the royal burial process. The sheer quantity of items, including jewelry, chariots, and statues, suggests that the young king was buried with great care and attention to detail. Yet many of these items were clearly of symbolic importance rather than practical use. The lavishness of the tomb suggests a belief in an afterlife, but it also highlights the paradoxes in the way the Egyptians viewed death and immortality. The presence of items meant to protect the king's soul, as well as everyday objects meant to sustain him in the afterlife, illustrates the deep spiritual significance of burial practices in ancient Egypt. Yet, it remains unclear whether these objects were truly chosen by Tut himself or by those who were preparing his burial. The lack of records and personal inscriptions from Tut's time leaves us with only speculation about the choices that were made in preparing his tomb. Finally, the political and religious upheaval surrounding Tutankhamun's reign presents another layer of mystery. Tut's father, Akhenaten, is known for his radical religious reforms, including the establishment of the god Aten as the sole deity in Egypt. This period of monotheism was a drastic departure from Egypt's long-standing polytheistic traditions, and it caused significant unrest. Tut's restoration of the traditional gods and the re-establishment of their temples marked a return to the old ways. But the details of this transition are not well documented. What exactly happened during Tut's reign in terms of religious and political change remains unclear, and much of what we know about his reign comes from the accounts of later rulers who sought to legitimize their own power by distancing themselves from the policies of Akhenaten. Ultimately, the many unresolved questions about King Tutankhamun's life, reign, and death ensure that his story remains one of the most captivating in all of history. From the mysterious circumstances of his lineage and reign to the unanswered questions surrounding his death and burial, there is a sense that much of King Tut's life remains hidden beneath layers of time, superstition, and scholarly speculation. While the treasures of his tomb and the breakthroughs in archaeology have allowed us to learn more about ancient Egypt than ever before, the boy king himself remains an enigma, his story unfinished, his true legacy still unfolding. The mysteries surrounding him ensure that King Tut will continue to fascinate and intrigue, long after the world's fascination with his tomb and its treasures has faded into the annals of history. As the world continues to unravel the mysteries of ancient Egypt, new advancements in technology, scientific methods, and archaeological techniques are shedding fresh light on the life, death, and legacy of King Tutankhamun. While the discovery of his tomb in 1922 opened the floodgates to a wealth of knowledge about the young pharaoh, it is only in recent years that many critical aspects of his story have started to become clearer. The 21st century has seen groundbreaking discoveries and technological innovations that allow us to take a closer, more accurate look at the life and health of King Tut, and even the events surrounding his death. These developments provide a more nuanced understanding of the boy king, from his genetics to his physical condition, and even offer new insights into the political and social world in which he lived. The first significant breakthrough came in the form of modern imaging techniques, such as CT scans and digital X-rays, which allowed scientists to study King Tut's mummified remains in ways that had never been possible before. One of the most significant outcomes of these scans was the revelation that Tutankhamun's body had suffered extensive damage, particularly to his chest and skull. Earlier examinations had suggested that Tut died from complications related to a broken leg, but the scans revealed additional clues. The CT scans revealed a fracture in his left femur, which likely became infected, but the scans also revealed evidence of a blow to the back of his head. This discovery led some experts to speculate that the young king's death may not have been entirely accidental. The question of whether Tut was murdered or whether his injuries were the result of an accident or some other cause remains one of the enduring mysteries of his death. In addition to the CT scans, DNA analysis has provided more concrete answers about Tut's lineage. For many years, the identity of Tut's parents was a matter of speculation. While it had long been believed that Tut was the son of Akhenaten, the controversial pharaoh who attempted to introduce monotheism to Egypt, questions surrounding the identity of his mother remained unanswered. In 2010, a team of scientists conducted DNA tests on Tut's remains, as well as those of other mummies believed to be his family members, including his father, Akhenaten. The results confirmed that Tutankhamun was indeed the son of Akhenaten, but they also provided surprising insights into his family's genetics. Most notably, the tests revealed that Tut's mother was likely his father's sister, and that Tut himself suffered from a number of genetic disorders, including a weakened immune system and a deformity in his foot. These findings have sparked new debates about the health of the royal family, particularly in relation to the practice of incestuous marriages among the pharaohs. The DNA analysis also revealed that Tutankhamun's royal lineage was plagued by inbreeding, which may have contributed to his premature death. The ancient Egyptian royal family often practiced incestuous marriages to keep the royal bloodline pure, a practice that, as modern science now understands, can lead to genetic defects and weaken health. This knowledge has helped contextualize many of the health issues Tut faced during his lifetime. In addition to his foot deformity, he suffered from a number of illnesses that would have made his life difficult. Malaria, one of the world's deadliest diseases, was likely another major contributor to his early demise. The malaria parasites found in his system suggest that he may have been battling the disease during his final days, further complicating the picture of his health. Beyond the findings related to Tut's health, the 21st century has brought new insights into the social and political context of his reign. While we still lack many direct records from Tutankhamun's time, the rise of digital archaeology and the use of satellite imaging has helped archaeologists uncover new artifacts and details about ancient Egyptian society. In 2015, a team of researchers discovered a new chamber within the tomb of Tutankhamun, located near the Boy King's burial chamber. This discovery has led to new theories about the tomb's original design and purpose, and some believe that the chamber may contain further clues about Tut's reign and his relationship with other figures in Egyptian history, such as his advisor Zai and Horemheb. The chamber's contents, when eventually uncovered, could provide much-needed context for understanding the Boy King's political and religious role. Satellite imaging, combined with ground-penetrating radar, has also been used to explore other areas of the Valley of the Kings, revealing hidden tombs and structures that could shed more light on the political landscape during Tutankhamun's time. While Tut's reign was largely defined by a return to traditional religious practices, it is clear that his advisors, especially the vizier Ai, played a significant role in shaping the kingdom's political and religious course. The tombs of these figures and the artifacts associated with them may provide critical insights into how Tut's advisors influenced his reign and the changes that took place during the late 18th dynasty. In addition to the physical and political discoveries, modern archaeology has also brought new interpretations of ancient Egyptian religious practices, which can help us better understand the significance of Tutankhamun's tomb and its contents. For instance, the large number of statues and figurines found in the tomb, many depicting gods and deities, has led scholars to reconsider the role of religion in Tut's life. The Boy King's tomb was filled with symbolic representations of protection, renewal, and immortality, all of which were meant to ensure his successful passage into the afterlife. Modern interpretations of Egyptian religious rituals, aided by insights from comparative religion and anthropology, have provided a more comprehensive understanding of how these practices were embedded in the everyday life of the ancient Egyptians. The advances in forensic archaeology have also raised new questions about the preservation of Tut's body and the elaborate mummification process that was employed to prepare him for the afterlife. In 2007, a team of researchers conducted a CT scan on Tut's mummified remains, revealing the extent to which ancient embalmers sought to preserve the body. The scan showed that his heart was removed, a rare practice for Egyptian royals, who were typically believed to require their hearts in the afterlife for judgment by the gods. This unusual treatment of Tut's remains suggests that his burial was part of a more complex and possibly rushed process, possibly reflecting the chaotic circumstances surrounding his early death and the political instability of his reign. What all these discoveries have in common is their ability to give us a more nuanced picture of King Tut's life and death. Each new breakthrough, whether it involved genetic testing, advanced imaging, or the discovery of hidden tombs, has brought us closer to understanding the boy king who, despite his brief and relatively unremarkable reign, has become one of the most famous figures in history. These new insights continue to challenge our preconceived notions about Tut, and they provide us with a deeper appreciation for the complexity of ancient Egyptian society. As technology continues to advance, it is likely that even more revelations about Tutankhamun and his world will emerge, further enriching our understanding of this enigmatic ruler. The discoveries of the 21st century also remind us that history is never truly static. With each new technological development, we are able to peel back more layers of time, uncovering secrets that were once hidden in the sands of Egypt. King Tutankhamun's tomb, once considered the pinnacle of archaeological discovery, continues to be a source of fascination and revelation. As we learn more about his life, his health, and his world, we realize that the legacy of the boy king is far from fully understood, and that his story is still being written by the archaeologists, scientists, and researchers who continue to explore the depths of ancient Egypt. The treasures found in King Tutankhamun's tomb are among the most spectacular and significant archaeological discoveries in history. When the tomb was uncovered by Howard Carter in 1922, it was an unprecedented find. While most other royal tombs in Egypt have been looted over the centuries, Tutankhamun's tomb remained largely intact, offering a rare glimpse into the wealth, artistry, and cultural practices of ancient Egypt. The treasures discovered inside the tomb have not only provided us with an invaluable understanding of the grandeur of ancient Egyptian royalty, but they have also become symbols of the civilization's extraordinary achievements in art, craftsmanship, and religious belief. The sheer quantity and diversity of the artifacts found in Tutankhamun's tomb is truly staggering. Over 5,000 items were discovered, ranging from everyday objects to priceless gold and gemstones, ceremonial items, and statues. These treasures were intended to accompany the king into the afterlife, reflecting the ancient Egyptian belief that the afterlife was a continuation of life on earth. The richness and variety of the objects discovered offer insights into the material culture of the time, as well as the religious and social practices that govern the lives of the pharaohs and their subjects. One of the most famous and iconic items found in the tomb is the golden funerary mask of King Tut, which has become a symbol of ancient Egypt itself. The mask, made of solid gold and inlaid with lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian, is a masterpiece of craftsmanship and artistry. It was placed over Tutankhamun's mummified face as part of the embalming process, serving both as a way to preserve his likeness and as a protective charm for his soul. The mask's serene expression and intricate details convey a sense of both divine power and youthful vulnerability, encapsulating the complex nature of the pharaoh as both a mortal ruler and a divine figure. The mask has become one of the most recognizable artifacts from ancient Egypt, frequently featured in exhibitions and media portrayals of the civilization. In addition to the golden mask, a variety of other gold items were found within the tomb, each reflecting the pharaoh's status as a divine ruler. Among the most notable of these items are the golden chests and coffins, which were used to house Tutankhamun's mummified body. These coffins were elaborately decorated with scenes of the king's life and death, as well as images of gods and goddesses who were believed to protect him in the afterlife. The coffins were designed to ensure that the pharaoh's soul would be well cared for in the next life, and the gold was meant to symbolize the eternal nature of the king's spirit. Another significant discovery was the array of ceremonial items that filled Tutankhamun's tomb. These included statues, thrones, and furniture, many of which were made of precious materials like gold, ebony, and ivory. One particularly striking item is the golden throne, which features intricate depictions of Tutankhamun and his queen, Tutankhamun. The throne's craftsmanship and its symbolic representations of the king's power and his relationship with his queen illustrate the central role that royal marriage played in maintaining the stability and legitimacy of the monarchy. The throne's depiction of the couple seated together emphasizes the importance of the queen's role as the king's partner in both life and the afterlife. In addition to the regal items, the tomb contained a wealth of everyday objects that reveal much about the daily life of ancient Egypt's elite. There were jewelry pieces, weapons, chariots, and even a collection of board games, all of which demonstrate the luxury and sophistication enjoyed by the ruling class. One of the more intriguing discoveries was a set of finely crafted chariots, which were likely intended to accompany Tutankhamun in the afterlife. Chariots played a crucial role in the military and royal life of ancient Egypt, and their inclusion in the tomb suggests that Tut's spirit would require such vehicles in the next world as well. The presence of musical instruments in the tomb is another fascinating aspect of the treasures. Several stringed instruments, such as harps and lutes, were found in the burial chamber, suggesting that music played an important role in Tutankhamun's life and in his funeral rites. The instruments were likely intended to provide comfort and entertainment in the afterlife, but they also reflect the cultural importance of music in ancient Egyptian society. Music was often used in religious rituals and in celebrations, and it was believed to have the power to soothe the soul and facilitate communication with the divine. The tomb also revealed a collection of items related to the pharaoh's health and well-being. Tutankhamun's embalmed body was accompanied by a variety of medical instruments, including scalpels and ointment jars, which would have been used to treat the king's ailments during his lifetime. The presence of these items in the tomb is a reminder that the ancient Egyptians believed that maintaining the health of the king was essential not only for his well-being during his reign, but also for his success in the afterlife. In ancient Egyptian belief, the king was both a living god and a divine intermediary between the gods and the people, and his health was considered vital for the prosperity of the kingdom. Among the many discoveries, one of the most poignant and significant was a set of items related to the personal life of King Tut. These included a number of small statues, including those of gods and animals, which were meant to protect the king in the afterlife. Some of these statues depicted animals that were closely associated with the king, such as leopards, lions, and falcons. These animals symbolized strength, protection, and divinity, all qualities that were believed to be important for a ruler in the afterlife. Additionally, a number of personal items, including rings, necklaces, and sandals, were found, reflecting the king's personal taste and lifestyle. The discovery of such a vast array of treasures within King Tutankhamun's tomb has provided historians and archaeologists with invaluable insights into ancient Egyptian society. The wealth of material culture found in the tomb reveals the artistic and technological achievements of the time, as well as the religious and cultural beliefs that shaped the lives of the pharaohs. The tomb's contents provide a snapshot of the royal lifestyle and the rituals associated with death and the afterlife. The fact that the tomb remained largely intact for so long has allowed modern scholars to study these objects in unprecedented detail, offering a window into a world that existed more than 3,000 years ago. The treasures of Tutankhamun's tomb have had a lasting impact on the study of ancient Egypt and the world's perception of the civilization. They continue to capture the imagination of people around the world, and they have become symbols of Egypt's grandeur and mystique. The Boy King's treasures have not only provided us with a wealth of knowledge about the ancient world, but have also inspired countless exhibitions, films, books, and scholarly works. In many ways, the discovery of King Tut's tomb marked the beginning of a renewed fascination with ancient Egypt, one that continues to this day. As we look back on the treasures found in King Tutankhamun's tomb, we are reminded not only of the wealth and splendor of ancient Egypt, but also of the enduring legacy of one of history's most famous pharaohs. Though his reign was short and largely uneventful, the treasures he left behind have ensured that his name will be remembered for millennia to come. The tomb, with its gold and gemstones, its statues and chariots, offers a glimpse into the world of a king whose story continues to fascinate and inspire, long after the sands of time have settled over his resting place. The idea of a curse associated with the tomb of King Tutankhamun has captivated the public imagination for nearly a century. This so-called Curse of the Pharaohs became one of the most famous legends in the history of archaeology, shrouding the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in an air of mystery and danger. The curse, said to befall those who dare disturb the resting place of an ancient Egyptian king, has become a central part of the mythos surrounding Tutankhamun. While many dismiss the curse as mere superstition or coincidence, its pervasive presence in popular culture continues to add layers of intrigue to an already fascinating historical discovery. The origins of the curse can be traced back to the very moment the tomb of King Tut was opened by British archaeologist Howard Carter and his team in 1922. Shortly after the tomb's discovery, a series of mysterious deaths and misfortunes befell those connected to the excavation, fueling the belief that the tomb was cursed by the gods to protect the pharaoh from the disturbances of the living. The most notable of these deaths was that of Lord Carnarvon, the British financier who had funded Carter's excavation. Just a few months after entering the tomb, Lord Carnarvon died suddenly from an infected mosquito bite. This tragic event, which occurred on April 5, 1923, became the catalyst for the widespread belief in the curse. The timing of Carnarvon's death, combined with the circumstances of his passing, was enough to spark the idea that he had fallen victim to the wrath of the ancient Egyptian gods. In the weeks following his death, reports began to surface of other individuals connected to the tomb's discovery meeting untimely ends. The media, eager to capitalize on the sensational nature of the story, began to label these deaths as part of the curse of the pharaohs. While the reality of these deaths was far less mysterious and far more explainable by modern science, the public's fascination with the idea of a curse only grew stronger. As the legend of the curse grew, it was not only those who had entered the tomb who seemed to be affected. In the years following the discovery, there were rumors that a number of others associated with the excavation had experienced strange and unfortunate events. Some reports even suggested that the curse extended beyond the immediate circle of those directly involved with the tomb's discovery, claiming that anyone who dared to speak too openly about the excavation or take possession of items from the tomb would meet a similar fate. The idea that the curse was all-encompassing and that it was driven by the anger of ancient gods protecting the tomb from thieves and desecration added to the mystique and intrigue surrounding the whole discovery. In fact, the media's fascination with the curse only intensified with the death of more individuals linked to the tomb. For example, George Gould, an American millionaire who was a friend of Lord Carnarvon, died unexpectedly just a few months after the tomb's opening. In 1924, another archaeologist involved in the expedition, A.C. Merton, fell seriously ill, and the rumors of the curse quickly resurfaced. The number of untimely deaths and unexplained mishaps connected to the tomb continued to fuel speculation, creating a narrative that seemed too perfectly timed to ignore. It is important to understand that much of the belief in the curse was rooted in the culture of the time. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was not only a monumental archaeological achievement, it was also an event that occurred during a time when interest in Egyptology and ancient Egypt was at a fever pitch. The discovery of the tomb seemed to open a door into the distant past, a past that many believed was filled with mystical powers and secrets, and the media, ever hungry for sensational stories, eagerly played on the public's fascination with death and superstition. In the aftermath of Carnarvon's death, newspapers around the world were quick to publish sensational stories about the curse, and these stories played a significant role in creating the narrative of a malevolent force that sought to punish those who disturbed the tomb of King Tut. Despite the widespread media attention, the idea of a curse was not universally accepted by scholars and scientists. Many researchers, including Carter himself, dismissed the notion of a curse as pure superstition. Carter, who lived for several more years after the discovery and died of natural causes in 1939, was particularly vocal in his rejection of the curse. He attributed the deaths and misfortunes to ordinary causes, such as poor health, infections, and coincidence. Modern medical knowledge suggests that Lord Carnarvon's death was likely caused by an infection from a mosquito bite, while other deaths could be explained by the stresses of the expedition or the natural aging process. The curse, however, continued to live on in the popular imagination. It became a central part of the Tutankhamun story, often overshadowing the more significant aspects of the archaeological discovery. The curse was featured in books, movies, and documentaries, further entrenching it in the public's mind as an integral part of Tut's legacy. Even today, the idea of the curse of the pharaohs remains one of the most enduring elements of the King Tut story. In recent years, however, scientific studies have debunked many of the myths surrounding the curse. Researchers have pointed out that, while some of the deaths associated with the tomb were tragic and unusual, they were hardly out of the ordinary given the circumstances. Many of the individuals who were said to have been cursed lived long, healthy lives, and some of those who died unexpectedly had known health issues that could have contributed to their deaths. In fact, studies have shown that a number of people connected to the excavation lived long, prosperous lives, further undermining the idea that the curse was real. In light of this, some scholars argue that the myth of the curse may have been a form of psychological projection. The media and the public, fascinated by the treasures of Tutankhamun's tomb and the dramatic nature of the discovery, may have sought to explain the unexpected deaths and misfortunes in a way that fit into a larger narrative about the power of ancient Egypt. The idea of a curse, after all, is a compelling and dramatic way to explain events that seem otherwise inexplicable. It is, in many ways, an easy and emotionally satisfying answer to a set of complex, unpredictable circumstances. Nevertheless, the curse of the pharaohs continues to captivate the imagination of people around the world. It is a story that has become inextricably linked to the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb, and it adds a layer of mystique and intrigue to the life and death of a young pharaoh. Even though modern science has largely debunked the idea of a curse, the myth remains a powerful part of Tutankhamun's legacy, shaping the way we think about his tomb and its treasures. The curse, whether real or imagined, continues to be a testament to the enduring power of superstition and the human desire to find meaning in the mysteries of the past. The story of King Tutankhamun's rise to the throne is a remarkable tale of royal lineage, divine right, and the turbulent history of Egypt's 18th dynasty. As the boy king ascended to power at a tender age, the very nature of his bloodline, his familial connections, and the forces that shaped his rule would forever impact his reign, as well as the lasting legacy he left behind. His lineage, intertwined with the lives of his powerful and controversial parents, not only offers insights into the politics and succession practices of ancient Egypt, but also provides the key to understanding the religious upheavals that characterized his time on the throne. To fully grasp the significance of Tutankhamun's bloodline, we must first look to his parents, Pharaoh Akhenaten and his queen, Nefertiti. Akhenaten's reign is marked by one of the most radical transformations in the history of ancient Egypt. Prior to Akhenaten's rule, Egypt had a polytheistic religion, with a pantheon of gods and goddesses that included powerful figures like Ra, Osiris, and Ammonius. However, Akhenaten's reign saw a dramatic shift as he introduced the worship of the sun god Aten, pushing for monotheism and trying to establish Aten as the sole deity in Egyptian life. This religious revolution, which extended to art, architecture, and political policies, created turmoil in Egypt and alienated many powerful figures, including the priesthood of Ammonius. Akhenaten's decision to move the capital to the newly built city of Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna, further distanced his administration from the traditional power centers in Egypt. Akhenaten's religious reforms are central to understanding the early years of Tutankhamun's life and reign. When Tutankhamun was born, Egypt was already in the midst of this religious upheaval, and he was very likely affected by the broader political instability that came with his father's reign. Akhenaten's attempts to replace the traditional gods with the singular Aten had many enemies, and after his death, a swift reaction against the Aten religion took place. Many of Akhenaten's reforms were rolled back, and the priesthood of Ammonius regained its power. In many ways, this shift in religious policy set the stage for Tutankhamun's rule, which, although brief, was marked by a reversal of Akhenaten's innovations. When Tutankhamun ascended to the throne, he was just a child, and his rule was largely guided by regents and advisors, notably the powerful vizier, Ai, and the military general Horemheb. As a result, Much of Tut's reign was likely more of a political formality than a direct exercise of power. The question of who held the real power behind the throne remains a subject of scholarly debate. It is believed that these advisors, particularly Ai, who later succeeded Tut as pharaoh, exercised a great deal of influence over the young king's decisions. As a puppet ruler, Tut's primary role may have been to serve as a symbolic figurehead who legitimized the authority of those around him. The fact that he was a boy, with little experience or agency, made him vulnerable to the political machinations of the court. However, it is important to recognize that Tutankhamun's bloodline and his connection to his father, Akhenaten, provided him with a divine right to rule. In ancient Egypt, kings were seen as living gods, with their authority stemming from their direct lineage to the gods themselves. Even though Tut may not have wielded power in the traditional sense, his royal bloodline conferred upon him the status of pharaoh, and this status gave him a legitimacy that others could not easily challenge. His lineage as the son of Akhenaten and Nefertiti also made him a direct heir to the throne of Egypt, despite the upheaval of his father's reign. The royal bloodline also shaped Tutankhamun's marriage to his half-sister, Inkhesenamun, who was the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. In ancient Egypt, royal marriages were not only a means of consolidating political power, but also of preserving the divine purity of the royal bloodline. By marrying his sister, Tutankhamun ensured that the bloodline of Akhenaten and Nefertiti remained unbroken, and it reinforced his legitimacy as the ruler of Egypt. This practice of incestuous marriage, though uncommon in many other cultures, was considered essential in Egyptian royal families to maintain the purity of the royal line. Despite the unusual nature of this marriage, it is clear that Inkhesenamun played a significant role in the political and religious life of her husband's reign. In fact, some historians believe that Inkhesenamun may have been more involved in the governance of Egypt than we traditionally give her credit for. Some evidence suggests that after Tutankhamun's death, she may have played a pivotal role in the negotiations and power struggles that followed. The question of whether she had any influence during her husband's life is still open to debate, but it is likely that, as his wife and the daughter of a powerful royal family, she had some level of influence, even if it was indirect. Tutankhamun's royal lineage also carries with it the legacy of Akhenaten's controversial reign. The shift away from the traditional polytheistic beliefs of Egypt to the monotheistic worship of Aten led to widespread unrest and dissatisfaction. After Akhenaten's death, the court and the people of Egypt quickly reverted to the old ways, reinstituting the worship of Ammonius and the other gods of Egypt. It is likely that Tutankhamun, under the guidance of his advisors, played a key role in the restoration of Egypt's traditional religious practices. One of the first actions Tut took as pharaoh was to reverse his father's religious reforms, re-establishing the temples of Ammonius and bringing back the old gods that had been sidelined during Akhenaten's reign. The evidence for this religious shift is found in the inscriptions and reliefs that appear in Tutankhamun's tomb, many of which show him making offerings to the gods of Egypt. This restoration of the old religious order helped stabilize Egypt politically and allowed Tutankhamun to present himself as the rightful heir to the throne, one who would restore Egypt to its former glory after the tumultuous reign of Akhenaten. However, it is important to note that this reversal was not without its own challenges. The restoration of the priesthood of Ammonius and the other gods was met with resistance from the followers of Aten, who had vested interests in maintaining Akhenaten's religious reforms. This conflict may have been one of the reasons why Tut's reign was so brief and politically unstable. The political dynamics of Tutankhamun's reign also highlight the significance of his lineage in the broader context of ancient Egyptian politics. While Tut may not have directly shaped the direction of his kingdom, his bloodline gave him a unique position of authority and legitimacy. His reign, though short and marked by the influence of powerful regents, served as a critical turning point in Egypt's return to religious and political stability. The legacy of his bloodline, despite the challenges and upheavals of his time, left an indelible mark on the history of Egypt and cemented his place in the annals of history. Furthermore, Tutankhamun's lineage has continued to shape the way in which his story is told today. The fascination with his family, particularly his parents Akhenaten and Nefertiti, has ensured that his legacy lives on long after his death. His tomb, discovered in 1922, is often viewed not only as a reflection of his wealth and power, but also as a monument to the royal family's influence on the civilization of ancient Egypt. Tut's life and death have sparked countless debates, documentaries, and books, all seeking to better understand the significance of his royal bloodline and how it shaped his reign. In the end, the story of King Tutankhamun is one deeply intertwined with the history and destiny of Egypt's royal bloodline. His rise to power, the religious and political context of his reign, and the legacy of his ancestors all contributed to the image of the young king as both a symbol of continuity and change. His bloodline, from his controversial father Akhenaten to his famous mother Nefertiti, shaped not only his reign, but also the enduring fascination with his story. King Tut's legacy, inextricably linked to his royal lineage, continues to capture the imagination of the world, ensuring that the boy king's place in history is forever remembered. The death of King Tutankhamun has long been one of history's most intriguing and debated mysteries. Despite the wealth of information uncovered in his tomb, the young king's untimely demise at the age of approximately 18 or 19 remains shrouded in uncertainty. The questions surrounding his death are both tantalizing and perplexing, and over the years, a variety of theories have emerged to explain the circumstances that led to his premature passing. Was it a tragic accident, a natural illness, or something far more sinister? The discovery of his tomb in 1922 revealed a wealth of treasures and artifacts, but also raised more questions than answers, particularly regarding the cause of his death. The traditional explanation for King Tutankhamun's death, at least for much of the 20th century, was that he succumbed to complications from a broken leg. When Tut's mummy was first examined, the medical experts who studied his body observed a fracture in his left femur, and it was assumed that this injury led to an infection, which ultimately claimed his life. This theory, while plausible, never fully explained the circumstances of his death. It was a theory that seemed to fit the evidence, but there were always lingering doubts about its accuracy. After all, a young king like Tut, who would have had access to the best medical care available at the time, would not have died from a simple accident without other contributing factors. In the late 20th century, technological advances in medical imaging led to new insights into Tutankhamun's death. In 2005, a team of Egyptian scientists and archaeologists conducted a comprehensive examination of Tut's mummy using modern CT scans, which allowed them to study his body in much greater detail than had been possible in the past. These scans revealed additional evidence of the boy king's injuries, including a blow to the back of his head, which had not been detected in earlier examinations. This discovery raised the possibility that King Tut's death was not simply the result of a broken leg, but rather the result of something far more violent. The idea that Tut may have been the victim of foul play, rather than a victim of an unfortunate accident, has been one of the most controversial theories surrounding his death. Some scholars have suggested that the blow to his head may have been inflicted intentionally, perhaps as part of a political conspiracy or assassination. The fact that Tut's reign was marked by political instability and power struggles within the royal court only adds weight to this theory. As a young, inexperienced ruler, Tut would have been vulnerable to manipulation by powerful figures in his court, and it is possible that some factions within the royal family or the priesthood of Ammonius sought to remove him from power. The question of who may have had the motive to harm Tut is a subject of much speculation. Some have pointed to his advisors, such as the Vizier I, who would eventually succeed Tut on the throne, as potential suspects. Others have suggested that Tut's early death may have been the result of a struggle between rival factions within the military or the priesthood, who had competing visions for the future of Egypt. However, despite the intriguing possibility of foul play, there is no definitive evidence to support the idea that Tut was murdered. In fact, some experts argue that the blow to his head may have been the result of the embalming process, rather than an act of violence. Ancient Egyptians were known to mummify their dead with great care, but the embalming process could sometimes result in accidental damage to the body, particularly if the embalming was done hastily or improperly. Given the relatively rushed nature of Tut's funeral preparations, some researchers have suggested that the head injury could have been the result of mishandling during the mummification process, rather than an assassination attempt. Another theory that has gained traction in recent years is that King Tut's death may have been the result of an underlying health condition, possibly exacerbated by his weakened immune system. Genetic testing conducted in the early 21st century revealed that Tut suffered from several health problems, including a deformed foot and a genetic disorder that may have made him more susceptible to illness. These findings suggest that Tut's health may have been fragile throughout his life, which could have contributed to his early demise. It is also worth noting that Tut's body showed signs of malarial infection, and some experts have suggested that the combination of malaria and his physical ailments could have led to his death. Malaria, which was common in ancient Egypt, could cause severe symptoms, including fever, chills, and organ failure, and it is possible that Tut succumbed to the disease in combination with his other health issues. In fact, the discovery of malaria parasites in Tutankhamun's mummified remains has led to a re-evaluation of his cause of death. Some researchers believe that Tut may have died from the complications of malaria, possibly brought on by a weakened immune system. Malaria is a parasitic disease transmitted by mosquitoes, and it is believed that Tut may have been particularly vulnerable to it due to his genetic predisposition. The fact that malaria parasites were found in Tut's remains adds weight to the theory that his death may have been the result of a combination of factors, rather than a single traumatic event like a broken leg or a blow to the head. The evidence of genetic disorders in Tutankhamun's DNA has provided further insight into his overall health. Scientists have discovered that Tut likely suffered from several inherited conditions, including a clubfoot, a disorder that would have caused him considerable difficulty in walking and may have made him more vulnerable to other health complications. Tut's genetic makeup also reveals that he was inbred, as his parents were likely brother and sister. This practice of royal incest was not uncommon in ancient Egypt, but often led to genetic problems, as seen in Tut's case. The presence of genetic disorders, coupled with his apparent weakness and vulnerability, may have played a significant role in his early death. The theory of death by disease, compounded by his fragile health, may also explain why Tut's reign was so short and marked by a lack of strong leadership. It is possible that his health problems prevented him from fully participating in the governance of Egypt, leaving the administration of the country to his advisors and regents. The political instability of the time, coupled with Tut's physical and mental frailty, would have made it difficult for him to establish a strong presence on the throne. Yet another theory regarding Tut's death involves the possibility that his early death was the result of an infectious disease other than malaria. Ancient Egypt was no stranger to epidemics and pandemics, and there were likely many diseases circulating during Tut's time that could have contributed to his death. While malaria is the most commonly cited cause, it is also possible that other infections, such as tuberculosis or an unknown bacterial infection, may have played a role in his demise. However, these theories remain speculative, and the true cause of his death may never be definitively known. Despite the various theories, the true cause of King Tutankhamun's death remains elusive. His early demise at such a young age continues to puzzle historians and archaeologists alike. Whether it was a tragic accident, a result of a violent attack, or the consequence of a lingering illness, the mystery of Tut's death only adds to the allure of his story. The boy king, whose life and reign were cut short, continues to captivate the world's imagination, and his death, whatever the true cause, remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of ancient Egypt. The death of King Tutankhamun at such a young age marked a pivotal moment in the history of ancient Egypt. Though his reign was brief and often overshadowed by the larger historical figures of the time, his death had profound political, religious, and cultural consequences. The abrupt end to his life at approximately 18 or 19 years of age left Egypt without a clear successor and set off a series of political shifts and religious reforms that would reverberate throughout the country for generations. In many ways, The events that followed Tut's death were as significant as his brief time on the throne, shaping the future of the Egyptian monarchy and the religious landscape of the ancient world. First and foremost, Tutankhamun's death brought about a significant crisis of succession. As a child king with no male heirs, the young pharaoh left behind no clear successor, and this created a power vacuum at the heart of Egypt's royal family. While Tut had been married to his half-sister Ankhesenamun, there is no evidence that they had any children, making the question of who would take the throne even more pressing. The absence of an heir, combined with the uncertainty surrounding Tut's death, opened the door for a new phase of political intrigue in the royal court. In the aftermath of Tut's passing, Egypt's political leaders scrambled to find a suitable successor. The throne was eventually claimed by the vizier who had been one of Tut's closest advisors during his reign. I's ascent to power was not without controversy, as his rise to the throne marked the end of the direct line of Akhenaten and the restoration of the more traditional power structures within the Egyptian court. I's reign, however, was brief, and it is widely believed that he did not enjoy the same level of power or influence as the great pharaohs who had come before him. His role in Tutankhamun's death remains a topic of speculation, though there is little direct evidence to suggest that I was involved in any sort of conspiracy or foul play. In the years following Tut's death, the political turmoil in Egypt did not subside. The Egyptian people, who had experienced significant religious and political upheaval during the reign of Akhenaten and the subsequent reign of Tut, were now faced with the challenge of rebuilding their society after the sudden loss of their king. The restoration of traditional religious practices and the re-establishment of the power of the priesthood of Ammonius were key components of the political reforms that followed Tut's death. The king's passing signaled the end of the religious experiment that had been initiated by Akhenaten, and the reassertion of Egypt's ancient gods became a central focus for the new rulers of the land. The religious reforms that followed Tut's death were of particular significance. Akhenaten's monotheistic experiment, centered around the worship of the sun god Aten, had been unpopular with many segments of Egyptian society, especially the powerful priesthood of Ammonius, who had been marginalized during Akhenaten's reign. The restoration of the old gods and the revival of the cult of Ammonius were central to the political and religious shifts that took place in the wake of Tut's death. This restoration was not simply a return to the old ways, but a decisive moment in the history of Egyptian religion, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. Tut's death thus served as a catalyst for the re-establishment of the religious order that had defined Egypt for centuries. The temples of Ammonius were reopened, and the worship of the traditional gods was reinstated as the state religion. This shift had a profound impact on the people of Egypt, as it restored a sense of continuity and stability after the disruptions caused by Akhenaten's reforms. The fact that Tut's death played a central role in this restoration speaks to the deep connection between the monarchy and the religious institutions of ancient Egypt. The pharaoh was not only a political leader, but also the chief priest of the gods, and his death had wide-ranging implications for the spiritual and cultural life of the nation. On a more personal level, Tutankhamun's passing also had significant consequences for his family. His wife, Ankhesenamun, was left without her royal husband, and the future of their marriage and family was left uncertain. Some scholars have suggested that Ankhesenamun may have played a more significant role in the political affairs of Egypt than is often credited, and her actions in the wake of Tut's death provide a fascinating glimpse into the complexities of royal power during this transitional period. It is believed that Ankhesenamun, after the death of her husband, sought to marry a new king in order to secure her place and her family's future. She is thought to have written a letter to the Hittite king, asking for one of his sons to be sent to Egypt as her husband, but the request was ultimately denied, and it is not clear whether Ankhesenamun ever remarried. Ankhesenamun's role after Tut's death remains shrouded in mystery, and her fate is one of the great unanswered questions in the history of the Egyptian royal family. Some historians believe that she may have disappeared from the historical record after the brief reign of Ai, and others speculate that she may have been involved in the political intrigues that followed Tut's death. Whatever the truth may be, Her position as Tut's widow highlights the vulnerability and uncertainty faced by the royal family after the boy king's passing. Beyond the political and familial consequences of Tutankhamun's death, the boy king's passing also had a lasting impact on Egyptian art and culture. The late 18th dynasty had been a time of great artistic innovation, particularly during the reign of Akhenaten, when new forms of art and architecture emerged in response to his religious reforms. However, the death of Tutankhamun and the subsequent restoration of the old gods led to a return to more traditional artistic styles. The brief reign of Tut may have been marked by the flourishing of art that reflected the religious and political changes of the time, and the subsequent reigns of Ai and Horemheb saw a return to the more classical forms of Egyptian art and sculpture. The artistic legacy of Tutankhamun, while often overshadowed by the grandeur of other pharaohs, reflects the broader cultural shifts that took place in Egypt after his death. In the broader context of Egyptian history, Tutankhamun's death marked the final stages of the 18th dynasty, a period that had been marked by significant political and religious upheaval. His death signaled the end of an era, as the dynasty was eventually succeeded by the 19th dynasty, which brought with it a new wave of stability and power. In the years following Tut's death, Egypt would enter into a period of recovery, with strong rulers like Ramesses II restoring Egypt's power and influence in the region. Tutankhamun's death, in this sense, represents both the end of a turbulent chapter in Egyptian history and the beginning of a new one, as the country transitioned into a more stable period of rule. Ultimately, the death of King Tutankhamun was a turning point in the history of ancient Egypt. Though his reign was short and his life marked by political instability, his passing had far-reaching consequences that reshaped the political and religious landscape of Egypt for years to come. The power struggles, religious reforms, and cultural shifts that followed Tut's death reveal just how deeply intertwined the monarchy and religion were in ancient Egypt, and how the death of a king could send shockwaves through every facet of Egyptian society. King Tut's death marked not just the end of a life, but the beginning of a new chapter in the long history of one of the world's greatest civilizations. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb is one of the most significant events in the history of archaeology, not just for its historical implications, but for the way it captivated the world. The tomb, which had been untouched for over 3,000 years, offered an unprecedented glimpse into the world of ancient Egypt, and its treasures became some of the most famous artifacts in the world. Yet, the discovery itself was shrouded in drama, intrigue, and a series of fortunate events that ultimately led to one of the most remarkable archaeological finds of all time. Howard Carter's meticulous work, his persistence in the face of financial hardships, and his partnership with Lord Carnarvon, the British nobleman who funded the excavation, all combined to create a moment that would forever change our understanding of ancient Egyptian history. It all began in 1914, when Howard Carter, an English archaeologist with a keen interest in Egyptology, began his search for the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Carter was no stranger to the Valley of the Kings, having worked there for several years, and his knowledge of the region made him an ideal candidate for the search. He had been particularly intrigued by the relative obscurity of King Tutankhamun compared to other pharaohs like Ramses II or Thutmose III. Tutankhamun's tomb had been largely forgotten, and few knew of the young king's existence until the discovery of his tomb brought him into the global spotlight. Lord Carnarvon, a wealthy British nobleman and avid supporter of archaeological endeavors in Egypt, had been funding Carter's work in the Valley of the Kings. Despite the long history of excavations in the region, the search for Tutankhamun's tomb had so far yielded little success. By 1922, after nearly a decade of failed attempts, Carter was on the brink of giving up. The Valley of the Kings had been extensively explored, and many believed that all of the tombs had already been discovered. But Carter, driven by an unwavering belief that there was still something significant to be found, pushed on. His persistence was about to pay off. On November 4th, 1922, while conducting his routine survey of the valley, Carter made a remarkable discovery. His workmen unearthed a step leading down to what appeared to be an intact tomb. Upon further investigation, Carter realized that he had found something extraordinary. The tomb, which had been hidden for millennia, was undisturbed by tomb robbers. For Carter, it was a moment of unparalleled excitement, but he knew that a find of this magnitude would require caution and careful planning. He immediately sent a telegram to Lord Carnarvon, alerting him to the discovery and asking him to come to Egypt as soon as possible. The moment when Lord Carnarvon arrived in Egypt to join Carter in the excavation marked the beginning of what would become one of the most famous archaeological discoveries in history. Over the next several weeks, the team of archaeologists carefully cleared away the debris, revealing the entrance to the tomb. When they finally broke through the seal, they were greeted by a sight that no one could have imagined. The walls of the tomb were adorned with beautiful, intricate paintings, and the room was filled with treasures, golden artifacts, jewels, and objects that had never before been seen by the modern world. Among the most astonishing discoveries were the two solid gold shrines that contained the sarcophagus of King Tutankhamun. Inside the sarcophagus lay the mummified body of the young pharaoh, surrounded by a wealth of treasures that reflected the immense wealth and power of the Egyptian royal family. The tomb was filled with over 5,000 items, many of which were made of gold, silver, and precious stones, including a golden chariot, a throne, and the iconic golden mask that has come to symbolize the splendor of ancient Egypt. Each item in the tomb seemed to tell a story, providing invaluable insights into the culture, religion, and daily life of the ancient Egyptians. The discovery of the tomb sent shockwaves through the world. Newspapers across the globe reported the find, and it became an international sensation. People from all walks of life were captivated by the images of the treasures that had been unearthed, and the story of the young king and his tomb captured the imagination of millions. The treasures of Tutankhamun became symbols of Egypt's ancient grandeur, and the boy king, once a relatively obscure figure in Egyptian history, became a household name. The tomb's discovery not only transformed our understanding of ancient Egyptian burial practices, but it also brought Egyptology into the global spotlight. In addition to the material wealth found within the tomb, the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb provided a wealth of historical information. For the first time, scholars were able to see firsthand the funerary practices of Egypt's 18th dynasty, a period that had been poorly understood. The tomb contained a range of objects that revealed the importance of the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife, such as statues of gods and goddesses, funerary vessels, and even food offerings. The rich array of items showed how the ancient Egyptians viewed death and the afterlife, and how they prepared their rulers for eternity. One of the most significant aspects of the discovery was the insight it provided into the religious practices of ancient Egypt. The tomb of Tutankhamun was not just a repository of wealth. It was a microcosm of the belief system that had guided the lives of the Egyptians for millennia. The treasures found in the tomb reflected the belief in the pharaoh's divine status, and the elaborate preparations for the afterlife emphasized the importance of ensuring a safe journey to the realm of the gods. Through the objects found in the tomb, archaeologists and Egyptologists were able to piece together a more complete understanding of the ancient Egyptian worldview and their reverence for the afterlife. However, the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb also raised several questions that remain unanswered to this day. Despite the vast amount of treasure found within the tomb, there were no inscriptions or writings that directly identified the tomb's occupant. While it was clear that the tomb belonged to a royal figure, there was no immediate confirmation that it was Tutankhamun's tomb. It wasn't until further investigation and the analysis of the artifacts found in the tomb that Carter and his team were able to definitively confirm the identity of the young king. Even after the confirmation, the questions surrounding his reign and the reasons for his premature death remained, adding an air of mystery that continues to captivate scholars and the public alike. The discovery also led to the infamous legend of the Curse of the Pharaohs, a phenomenon that captured the imagination of the public and added an eerie layer to the already sensational find. After the death of Lord Carnarvon, who had been involved in the excavation, rumors began to circulate that those who had entered the tomb were doomed to suffer a terrible fate. The media sensationalized this idea, and the curse became an enduring part of the story surrounding the tomb. While modern scholars reject the idea of a literal curse, The legend remains an indelible part of the narrative of Tutankhamun's tomb. In the years that followed the discovery, King Tutankhamun's tomb became the focus of international attention, and the artifacts recovered from the tomb were displayed in museums around the world. These treasures, many of which are housed today in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, have become some of the most famous and important artifacts in the history of archaeology. The tomb's discovery not only transformed the field of Egyptology, but also fueled a renewed interest in ancient Egypt, inspiring generations of scholars, historians, and archaeologists to continue exploring the mysteries of the ancient world. Today, the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb remains one of the most important and enduring moments in the history of archaeology. It changed the way we understand ancient Egypt, and its treasures continue to captivate and inspire people around the world. The boy king, who once ruled over a kingdom that seemed forgotten by time, now lives on in the hearts and minds of millions, thanks to the extraordinary work of Howard Carter and the team that unearthed his tomb. In the centuries to come, the legacy of King Tutankhamun will continue to endure, as his tomb and its treasures remain symbols of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made.